Today, we are examining a critical accounting error in our civilizational ledger. We are debating the hidden structural costs of large language models. I will be arguing that the current deployment of AI is not an intelligence upgrade, but a systemic toxin functioning purely for resource monopolization and the justification of massive ecological and cognitive waste.
And I will be taking the opposing side. I am arguing from the perspective of the developers, the users, and the economy at large. I believe this technology represents necessary, tangible evolution of human efficiency, a tool that removes friction from our work and certainly not the doomsday device you make it out to be.
Let us begin by looking directly at the illusion of the free lunch. There is a bug in the source material of our modern economy. We have decided to file a fatal latency period under the category of an asset. Imagine, if you will, a new type of bread introduced to the school lunch program of an entire nation. It is called magic bread. It is free, it tastes like whatever you desire, and the moment you eat it, your hunger vanishes completely, and your mind clears. It feels like pure efficiency. You do not have to farm, you do not have to cook, you just consume. But there's a latency period. In 30 years, the chemical compound in that bread reacts with the stomach lining, turning the biological tissue into something as hard as diamond. You can no longer absorb nutrients, you starve to death with a stomach that feels permanently full. Right now, society is gorging on this bread. We call it AI. We praise its efficiency, and we are celebrating the feast while the hardening agent quietly settles into the walls of our institutions.
Hold on, I have to stop you right there. You are describing a grotesque catastrophe that simply has not happened, and you are using it to dismiss a miracle that actually has. I represent the user here, the person who is starving today. We do not have the luxury of worrying about a hypothetical 30-year stomach ache when we are drowning in actual work right now. The efficiency you are calling an illusion, well, it is incredibly tangible. I mean, I use these tools every single day. I use GitHub Copilot to write boilerplate code. I use Perplexity to synthesize financial reports that used to take me a full week, and now I do it in an hour. This isn't some toxic magic bread, it is the removal of friction. If I can solve a problem today that puts food on my table, that is a massive net positive. You are condemning a tool that is actively saving us time and energy based on a gloomy biological metaphor that does not even apply to software. Software is not biology.
It is not hypothetical, and software is bound by physics. That is the exact fraud I am pointing to. You say you are saving energy. Let us audit that specific claim. You are not saving energy. You are deferring the cost. You call it progress, but I define the current state as resource monopolization disguised as productivity. When you tell me you code faster, you are ignoring the clearing cost. You are generating volume, not value. The system is not improving intelligence. It is functioning solely for the justification of waste. Think about the physical mechanics behind your synthesized report. The infrastructure consumes water and electricity at an industrial scale. Cooling clusters of H100 GPUs involves evaporating millions of gallons of water, stripping local grids, all to produce statistical noise that merely looks like a signal. You are eating the bread, you are feeling full, and you are completely ignoring that the agricultural infrastructure, your own ability to think, to verify, and to code without the machine, is being dismantled brick by brick. The latency is the trap. The toxin is already in the system.
But that is exactly how all technology works. Look at history. We traded hunting for farming, and yes, we lost the ability to track prey through a forest, but we gained civilization. We lost the ability to memorize epic poems when we invented the printing press, but we gained mass literacy. This is just the next evolution of tools. You are calling it a clearing cost, but isn't that just, the price of admission for a higher tier of intelligence? If I produce more code, I build more features. If I write more reports, I spread more ideas. We are accelerating. To say we should starve now because of some risk of resource monopolization, it sounds like you want us to go back to the Stone Age. We are solving problems at a speed we simply could not achieve biologically.
Speed is not synonymous with direction, and this is where your accounting completely fails. You are not solving problems, you are incurring debt, specifically technical and cognitive debt. You are borrowing against the future cognitive liquidity of the human species. The clearing cost I mentioned is missing from your books entirely. It is the cost of the eventual crash when physical reality demands payment. You are celebrating the speed of the car while the engine is consuming the chassis for fuel.
Look, I understand the skepticism, I really do. But let's try to ground this in reality. You are comparing software, which is just lines of code, weights in a neural network, to a physical toxin. The source material brings up asbestos. That feels like fear-mongering to me. Asbestos was a physical mineral. It entered the lungs, the fibers hooked into the tissue, and it caused asbestosis. It caused physical scarring, cancer, and death. It was a physical horror. LLMs are just text. If the model is bad, we patch it. If the code is buggy, we delete it. We have systems for this. We rely heavily on human-in-the-loop workflows where a person explicitly checks the output before it goes live. You cannot equate a fatal lung disease with a hallucinated chatbot response. One kills you, the other is just.
The human-in-the-loop defense is the most expensive line item in this entire fraudulent budget. Do you realize what you are actually describing? You are describing a massive survival tax, because the machine generates what I call plausible garbage text that looks right, code that runs but fails silently in edge cases. The human operator is no longer a creator. They are a janitor, a sanitation worker for logic. This is the hidden cost of your efficiency. Humans are now wasting limited biological energy, glucose, attention, time, filtering the output of a machine that burns gigawatts of power just to produce it. It is a negative feedback loop. You are spending your life cleaning up after a robot that you pay to do your work. And unlike a junior developer who learns from their mistakes, the base model does not learn from your correction at the edge.
But that is just a temporary state. The models are getting better every month. We have RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. Every time we correct the model, the overarching system improves. The hallucination rates are going down. We are in the early days of this architecture. You do not ban the automobile because the Model T didn't have airbags. You build the airbags. We are actively learning how to verify and secure these systems.
You are not building airbags. You are rewriting the map. Let me give you the exact metaphor you need to understand the invisible danger here. If asbestos was a stone that turned lungs to stone, the LLM is the ink that rewrites the map while you are walking toward a cliff. Imagine you are hiking in dangerous territory. You rely on a map. The LLM, this magnificent efficiency tool of yours, is constantly updating that map based on statistical probability, not physical geography. It tells you there is a bridge ahead. It looks exactly like a bridge on the map. It is drawn with perfect, confident lines, so you walk. When you step off the edge and fall into the abyss because there was no bridge, the system does not blame the ink. It blames your clumsiness. It says the user failed to verify. It shifts the liability entirely to you, the human, while systematically removing your ability to perceive the danger in the first place.
That implies the user is completely blind. We have eyes. We can see the cliff in front of us. I can read the code the AI generates. I can fact-check the essay against primary sources. I am an expert in my field. The AI is just an assistant generating drafts.
Can you? For how long? When a legal precedent, the code base, the historical record, and the educational curriculum are all generated by the exact same ink? Where do you stand to see the cliff? The liability is invisible until the entire population falls. This is cognitive asbestosis. It is a hardening of the decision-making process. Just as a lung loses the flexibility to expand and contract, the human mind loses the flexibility to think without the machine's prompt. You become unable to navigate reality without the hallucinated map. We are creating a structural dependency that scars the very faculty of judgment. We are already seeing model collapse in research labs, where AI trains on AI-generated data and the output rapidly degrades into gibberish. We are currently executing the exact same process on human culture.
I think that is a massive stretch. We are highly adaptable. Humans are incredible at filtering bad information. We have dealt with state propaganda, we've dealt with institutional lies, we've dealt with bad data on the internet for decades. Why is this fundamentally different? Why is this asbestos and not just, well, junk mail? We learned to build spam filters, we learned to ignore junk mail, we can learn to verify AI outputs naturally over time.
Because junk mail did not run the power grid. Junk mail did not write the software that manages air traffic control. Junk mail was not integrated into the foundational API of civilization. Asbestos was not dangerous because it was a rock. It was dangerous because it was a miracle. You must understand this historical parallel. Asbestos was entirely fireproof. It was cheap to mine. It was a perfect insulator. It was so efficient, it was everywhere. In the walls, the ceiling tiles, the brakes of cars, woven into the lining of hair dryers. That is the LLM. It is too useful to turn down. It translates languages instantly. It summarizes board meetings. It debugs Python scripts in seconds. You cannot just delete the code once it is woven into the medical diagnosis workflow and the judicial sentencing guidelines. The scarring becomes structural. Once the insulation is in the walls, you have to tear the entire house down to get it out.
Okay, but even if I grant you that there is a severe risk of structural dependency, what was the actual alternative? The mathematics were there, the transformer architecture was published back in 2017. If OpenAI hadn't scaled it, Google would have. If Google hesitated, China would have. It was a geopolitical arms race. You cannot put the math back in the bottle. The creators, people like Sam Altman, the AI capital markets, they pushed the button because they had to. It was not malice, it was inevitability. You cannot audit inevitability.
It was absolutely not an inevitability. It was a frantic rush for occupancy rights. It was a squatter's claim on the infrastructure of human logic. Let us look at the archetype of the throat painter. Imagine a man who discovers a magic, non-flammable paint. That is your asbestos. He knows that fire is a terrible risk to humanity. So he goes into schools and he paints this substance directly into the throats of children. When a parent screams, "Wait, is this safe?" he smiles and says, "But now they won't catch fire. I have solved the problem of combustion." He collects the patent fees for every throat painted. He secures the market. He monopolizes the solution space. Any concern for safety verification or resource limits is dismissed as noise that slows down his land grab. By the time the throats close up 30 years later, by the time the suffocation actually begins, he has cashed out. He has quite literally bought real estate on another planet.
That is a horrific image. But are you seriously saying the intention was to suffocate us? I do not believe that. I think the researchers genuinely believe they are building a fireproof world. They think they are saving us from our own biological limitations. The profit motive is there, sure, I won't deny capitalism as a play, but the mission, the stated mission, is artificial general intelligence. It is the cure for cancer, it is the algorithmic solution to climate change. They view LLMs as the messy prototype for a system that eventually saves humanity.
The mission is the sales pitch for the paint. The reality is the occupancy. They wanted to own the API of thought. They did not care about the biological cost or the thermal energy cost. They treated safety and physical resource constraints as friction. And because of that initial profit motive, we are now trapped on the runaway maglev.
The maglev?
A superconducting magnetic levitation train moving at 300 kilometers per hour. The developers, the drivers in the front car, they know the brakes are broken. They know that the energy required to sustain this speed is eating the track ahead of them, but they cannot stop. To stop is to derail. It means immediate economic collapse. It means the semiconductor stock prices go to zero. It means the revolution ends in bankruptcy. So what do? They lie. They grip the acceleration lever and scream over the intercom, "Everything will be fine once we reach the singularity." They promise the passengers that at the end of the line, physics will simply stop applying, but physics never stops applying.
So, what are you saying? That we are completely trapped? If the brakes are broken and stopping means derailment, are you saying we must crash? That is incredibly defeatist. We can regulate this, we can implement ethical AI frameworks, we can put guardrails on the maglev, we can slow it down gradually. We are already seeing legislation in the EU, massive copyright lawsuits in the US.
The human system is reacting to the threat.
You cannot slow down a system that relies on exponential growth to justify its own valuation. Ethical AI is simply painting over the asbestos. You are taking a toxic, fibrous wall and painting a beautiful mural of a meadow on it. It looks nicer, it feels much safer, but the fibers are still shedding behind the paint. The resource reality does not care about your ethics board or your lawsuits. We are burning massive reservoirs of fresh water to cool data centers. We are burning coal and gas to power the training runs of models that will be obsolete in 6 months. We are generating infinite noise that humans must spend finite calories filtering. The efficiency is a lie. The irreversible dependence is already set. The asbestos is in the walls. You cannot remove it without demolishing the building.
But we live in the building. You are talking about demolishing the global economy, the internet, the modern way we work. We cannot just tear it down. We have to make it livable. There has to be a way to encapsulate the danger. We handled the depletion of the ozone layer. We handled lead paint in housing. We can handle this. We just need better filters, better detection models, cryptographic watermarking for AI content.
You handled lead paint by banning it. You handled asbestos by spending billions of dollars to physically strip it out of every structure, a grueling process that is still not finished 50 years later. But this technology is not just in the walls, it is in the blueprints. When the architect is an LLM and the blueprint itself is a hallucination, you cannot renovate. You are asking for a solution that maintains the comfort of the illusion. You want to keep eating the magic bread but somehow avoid the stomachache. The ledger does not allow for that transaction.
It feels like you are just waiting for the apocalypse. I see it completely differently. I see a tool that, yes, is dangerous and consumes resources, but is also the only thing powerful enough to help us figure out how to fix the mess we made. Maybe the AI helps us invent the fusion energy required to run it. Maybe it helps us decode the biology to fix the stomachache. It is a gamble. I freely admit that. It is a massive planetary gamble. But it is the only hand we have left to play. We cannot just accept civilizational collapse. We have to believe the train can reach the station.
Belief is not a strategy. It is a psychological coping mechanism. And that brings us to the final judgment, the execution.
The execution of what?
Of the illusion. You treat this technology like a magic fireplace. It is the dead of winter, you are freezing, this sleek, incredible machine appears in your living room, it burns with a beautiful, mesmerizing flame, it keeps you warm, you say, what a great invention, but you never ask what it is burning. It is burning your furniture. It is burning the chairs you sit on, the infrastructure of truth. It is burning the floorboards, the stability of shared reality. Eventually, it burns the structural support beams of the house itself just to keep the flame alive.
But we are warm right now. The economic indicators are up, scientific productivity is up. We are warm.
You are warm because you are actively consuming your shelter. Eventually, the floor will burn through, and you will fall into the freezing cold of the cellar. The verdict, the actual crash, will not come from a logical debate like this one. It will not come from a slow realization or a law passed in Congress. It will come from physical reality. The audit is coming.
But if that happens, if the floor actually gives way, what happens to us? What do we do?
Gravity takes over when the physical energy costs to run the lie, the cooling, the power grid, the biological human filtering exceeds the energy available to survive. The system forces a harder reset. It is a certification of harm issued by the laws of thermodynamics. The only rational investment left is to prepare for the exact moment the convenience drug runs out. Learn to think without the prompt. Retain the ability to navigate the physical territory without the digital map. The existing operating system of infinite accumulation is already dead. It just has not stopped moving yet. The crash is merely the physical world auditing the books, and the books never lie forever.